Take a look around the room you're sitting in right now. The walls, the screen, the furniture. Your brain tells you this is a direct window into objective truth. But when cognitive science puts that assumption to the test, the physical world collapses into a biological illusion. Cognitive scientist Donald Hoffman suggests that evolutionary biology actively hides reality from us. By running evolutionary game theory models, his team discovered a strict mathematical rule: fitness beats truth. To survive long enough to reproduce, an organism must prioritize utility over accuracy. This is a model of how perception actually functions. A computer desktop uses a simple folder icon, so you don't have to calculate millions of lines of code. In the same way, we perceive space, time, and physical objects as utility-maximizing icons designed to prevent sensory overload. These icons function by burying the underlying complexity of the universe. If you had to process the quantum interactions and energy fields of every atom just to walk to the kitchen, you would be paralyzed by the data. The interface allows us to act by keeping the true architecture of reality out of sight. We are living inside a survival-optimized virtual reality generated by our own biology. Our senses are not windows. They are a headset that locks us into a localized render of the world. Running a simulation this immersive requires a dual-processor architecture. To see how the render is maintained, we have to look at the physical structure of the human brain. Psychiatrist Iain McGilchrist's research shows that the two brain hemispheres render two fundamentally different versions of the world. They offer two distinct modes of attention and apprehension that create our experience of being alive. The right hemisphere, which McGilchrist calls the master, provides broad, sustained attention. It perceives the continuous, living flow of the whole, the world of context, empathy, and undivided experience. The left hemisphere, the emissary, provides narrow, utilitarian focus. It takes the master's holistic experience and slicing it into isolated fragments, categories, and tools that can be measured and used. This division was designed to be a hierarchy. The emissary provides the pieces, but the master provides the meaning. However, this delicate biological balance is prone to a specific catastrophic inversion. At some point in our cultural and neurological history, the hierarchy flipped. The emissary, the left hemisphere's mode of fragmented thinking, usurped the master's role as the primary interpreter of reality. As the left hemisphere takes control, it begins to act as a bureaucratic demiurge. It forces all perception through its own narrow rules of logic and abstraction, suppressing any information that it cannot categorize or quantify. This creates a society trapped in self-referential loops. We find ourselves living in a world made of maps, spreadsheets, and legalistic abstractions. We have effectively locked ourselves inside a hall of mirrors, where every thought leads back to another predefined category. Because the left hemisphere only understands what it has already categorized, it is fundamentally unsettled by the unknown. To feel secure, it must double down on its systems, creating more rules and tighter boundaries to keep the living world at bay. When every interaction is mediated through these rigid, self-referential systems, we lose touch with the continuous flow of the world. This biological imbalance is the source of the modern feeling that life has become a sterile, repeating simulation. If the left hemisphere's interface is actively suppressing the whole, what is the objective reality it's trying so hard to hide? The 17th century philosopher Baruch Spinoza reached a conclusion that bypassed the divided brain entirely. He called it Deus sive natura, God or nature. Spinoza's monism argues that there is only one substance in the universe. In this view, God is not a separate creator sitting outside the machine, but the machine itself, the infinite, undivided totality of all things. This maps perfectly onto modern theories of perception. The isolated icons we see, a chair, a tree, our own bodies, are not separate things. They are just temporary ripples in a single, infinite substance. Absolute reality is a unified whole, but we are born with an evolutionary processor that is hardwired to slice it into pieces, just so we can navigate it. You cannot think your way out of this interface using standard logic. Logic is the native language of the left hemisphere. It is the very tool the system uses to maintain its boundaries. Carl Jung identified a specific psychological force that functions as an essential antidote to this rigid categorization, the trickster. The trickster breaks the arrogant, rigid categories of the ego through humor and paradox. By presenting the mind with something that is simultaneously A and not A, it forces the analytical mind to encounter its own limitations. The trickster can do this because it occupies two worlds at once, the raw biological reality of the animal and the abstract symbol-making world of the human. By forcing these two contradictory modes into the same moment, it drags the analytical mind back into the chaotic, living context it excludes. In this context, absurdity and paradox are not failures of human reason. They are the way to disrupt a mental operating system that has become its own prison. We can see this in the life of Alan Watts. He described himself as a philosophical entertainer and a rascal, using humor as a deliberate tool to dismantle intellectual ruts. His physical environment reflected this refusal to be boxed in. He worked in a round wooden library hidden in the redwoods, a space designed specifically to reject the rigid, linear conventions of academic life. Watts' famous belly laugh was a physical eruption that momentarily bypassed his own intellect. In that moment of spontaneous joy, the brain's need to categorize and control is suddenly suspended, forcing a sudden confrontation with the absurdity of a world that refuses to be measured. When the system is disrupted, the rigid render briefly fails, the categories dissolve, and the right hemisphere's awareness of the whole floods back in. By embracing the absurd, we stop seeing ourselves as isolated icons fighting for survival. We see through the interface and finally recognize ourselves as conscious expressions of the infinite whole.